Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week. Barry is saying to me, what is this transactional intimate relationships all about? So I'm saying just wait and find out. I went down a rabbit hole again this week, and this is what I came out thinking about. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, we did a show on prison love. And I was fascinated about why somebody would get into a relationship with somebody that was incarcerated. And as I started watching the show, I actually realized that probably the healthiest people were the ones that were incarcerated, and it was the ones that were reaching out that had more issues. But one of the themes that I saw again and again and again, because yes, I confess I did go down that rabbit hole. I haven't watched reality TV in years. And it was just, to me, it was just like, oh my God, I've got to figure this out. And what I really saw after a few of the episodes was there was a transactional relationship going on. And you might think that, I mean, transactional relationships are obviously every relationship is transactional to one degree or another. We all are in it, hopefully it's transactional to a degree because, nobody wants to be in a one-sided relationship. But there are sort of, transactional relationships in the work environment, employee, employer, there's, oh my goodness, just so many different types in the business world and outside of intimate relationships where things are transactional. You do a job, you get paid for it, that's all fine. Even in parenting, we have children because they bring us so much love and we love them. And there's again an exchange of love and care. But I wanted to talk about transactional relationships within the intimate relationship setting. And what I saw after what came to me after watching this show was that there was an unspoken transactional agreement going on for for both parties actually, but because it was unspoken, there was a lot of misunderstanding. And what I saw from the inmates' perspective was they wanted company, they wanted connection, they wanted some emotional connection with the outside world. They weren't so isolated and so alone. Some of them were more fraudulent and doing it for money and send me money, and some of them had a few people going on at the same time. But for the people that were outside, what kept coming up again and again, because it shows all these different relationships, men and women, etc., was this: I was there for you when you were inside, so therefore you owe me. And there was this real, because I kept thinking, why is everybody that is on the outside so ready to marry this person that many of them never had any physical intimacy with? Some of them haven't even seen the people, never mind, they've seen them on video, but not even gone to the prison and visited them. But they were so absolutely convinced that this was the love of their life, their soulmate, and they wanted to get married the day the prisoner got out. And I kept thinking, what is that desperation to seal the deal, to get married, and to somebody you do not know? And what really came up, I saw, was that they felt that they were owed this, that they had sacrificed by being in an intimate relationship without any of the physical intimacy. And they had been there for this person for whether it was a year, 2, 3, whatever it was, amount of time, sometimes just a few months. And they felt they were owed something. Yeah. And equally so, the person that was incarcerated felt obliged, even though they were like, I don't even know this person. I don't know why they marry them. I was feeling so whatever, grateful. So there's this dynamic going on that I witnessed where both people were acting out of obligation out of well, again, as I say, the person on the outside was feeling that they were owed this commitment, and the person that had been released felt that they owed the person marriage, even though they didn't really want to and didn't know them well enough to. So I
Right.
find that dynamic fascinating. And again, as I was saying, these transactional relationships and intimate relationships exist all the time,
Hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with them when they are out in the open and both people know what's going on. That's my take on it. What about you, Brian? About Harry, sorry.
Yeah, the thing comes up for me first of all is this: there's this indicator of transactional relationship happening when when someone one of the partners says to the other person, "Well, if you loved me, then you'd do this for me," sort of thing. It was that
Mhm.
it's the guilt slash control slash threat going on in that relationship that makes it less than loving.
Mhm.
And so in these relationships, in particular with the prison ones, and we'll definitely talk about regular relationships too, because most people watching this are looking at regular relationships, not prison relationships. They think so.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's in a way what it does is like puts under the microscope and makes it more of a um, extreme case of how a relationship can be functional by being dysfunctional,
Mm.
and having this paradigm where it is so transactional because it's not on the. I mean, because to me, the opposite transaction is transformational, and so in relationships, I'm all about relationships that grow and thrive, and partners become more themselves in the relationship. Ideally, that's what I coach my clients to be. And so the transactional piece is where it's more of a default or more of a mechanical way of exchanging things to keep the agreements so that people don't get upset or that people are happy. And it's this the challenge with transactional relationships for me is that it's like keeping score.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that isn't very well, it's not sexy, it's not romantic, it's almost punitive ultimately because it's like we're out of balance sort of thing. So that thing about the prisoners or the ex-incarcerated feeling like they owe, it's almost like they feel like because they're one down on the score sheets, they're going to do something for their partner just to feel in balance. They can at that point perhaps even walk away. It's almost like they got to finish up their debt paid to society, then debt paid to this person, so they can be free, which
Yeah.
is not
No, and you brought up a really good point because that's another show I wanted to do was about when you choose to be in a relationship when there is a there it's not balanced. There's an inequality, whether you have the savior, we've talked about this before about, the savior complex, and you're choosing some
yeah,
that that is sort of in a bad place in their life, and you're coming in and you're rescuing them, and then as they get healthier and stronger, it's like, hang on a minute, I was there for you when you were down, I you owe me now. So that's a whole other show. But
right.
for right now, what I wanted to talk about, and again, I was just using the prison thing as a jumping off point, but we're not going to belabor that because, as you said, most of our clients are not in that
Indeed.
situation. But there are some relationships that are very evidently transactional, and it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they're bad or they're dysfunctional. They really are. I mean, take look at sugar daddies and sugar mummies now. I mean, it's very clear to the outside world what is going on,
Yeah,
and often, say it's the sugar daddy situation, and so that it's an older man with a younger woman, and he feels that he doesn't mind providing all the financial trimmings and everything to have somebody beautiful on his arm that makes him feel young and excited. He knows there's an imbalance there, but it's worth it to him. The exchange,
mhm,
the benefits are worth it, and that's a sort of out in the open agreement to a degree. And the same with the sugar mummy. Again, there is very many, older women that really love dating younger men. They make them feel that they're alive, that they're sexy, that they haven't sort of, you know, um, sort of they're not over the hill or anything like that. So those are you might not come out and say exactly, but you sort of know. I mean, I know many women that have younger boyfriends that are, um, you know, they know the deal. They might not actually say it, but there is an exchange going on, and it's pretty evident what the exchange is, and that is completely fine if that's what you choose to do. Um, again, awareness of what your needs are and what your wants are. It's when you start fooling yourself into thinking it's more than that. I'm not saying it can't be more than that by any means. I think there can still be love
Right.
when there's an age difference, but when it's purely for financial gain, for the way I look,
It's
that's
about it's a trade and a barter system. It's not a real love relationship. It really is a structured way to exchange one thing for another, which isn't equal or isn't compatible. So it's like, you're paying for sex, basically, or paying for love, or paying for looks.
yeah,
There's disparity there because it's become transactional, but in the extreme, like, purchase level versus transactional, just doing things for each other.
yeah,
I talk about my work a lot about how you want to be a whole person. So when you get in a relationship, you give from the overflow. But these transactional relationships are not based on that.
mhm,
They're based on some sort of lack or feel like they can get something by paying in quotes or giving something away, get something back, and it becomes very mechanistic. And it does make it for me a lot less about real relationship and real depth and more about an arrangement or
yeah.
even a contract.
100%. But I would take the. I think it. I do think it's an exchange. I do think it's an arrangement. I do think it's a fair system. This for that. So I have no judgment about whether it's a real relationship or not. It might be less emotionally intense and more on the surface level of somebody that there are people that don't want to or can't go very deep emotionally. So that type of relationship totally works for them. It's like, a lot of the work I do with, narcissistic relationships. Um, People stay for many, many reasons. And I always say, if you can live without the emotional connection, if you can live with bad behavior and you don't let it affect you, and you want to stay because of your children, your lifestyle, your whatever, your age, everything, stay by all means. Don't stay trying to change the other person.
Right.
That's going to get yourself crazy. But if
Oh
you
yeah.
can accept the relationship for its limitations on the emotional level, but know that you gain on the physical level,
Mhm.
then that's your choice. It wasn't my choice, but it's fine if you
No,
can do it and not
I get
not go crazy in the process.
right. But one of the things about that is you definitely have to set up an agreement or a contract or something between the two of you so you're on the same page. Because the challenge is when one person goes in with a transactional relationship model in their head and the other person isn't that place, it becomes very challenging to put those two together. So you have to have something where the conversation is clear and honest up front. So
Yeah.
you actually how you want to proceed once you get into the relationship.
100%. And that brings me to another type of transactional relationship. Again, zero judgment, but friends with benefits. I mean, there are some people that truly um, don't feel ready for a committed relationship. They, I mean, again, this is not something I've can consciously say I've ever done. No, I'm a relationship person. I'm trying to think. Did I ever have a friend with a benefit? I probably did, but I probably didn't know it at the time. Let's put it that way. But again, I think if you are somebody that doesn't want to invest in an intimate relationship on every level and become monogamous and committed, then a friends with benefit relationship is fine if you both know it and you both agree to it. And that's what you both want out of the relationship.
Yeah, it was see. No, I did have a relationship that was basically friends with benefits
Mhm.
a long time, but it was never. It wasn't transactional. It was purely fun. It was like we did it because we could. It wasn't because we had to work an arrangement. So I'm not sure I would definitely for myself put friends with benefits in the heading of transactional relationships. At least in my own experience, it wasn't that.
Yeah.
So that may go against what you're saying.
Well, I think transactional in the sense of um, yeah, you're giving each other. You are aware that this relationship has limitations to begin with. You're aware that you don't want it to become intimately. You don't want it to evolve into a marriage or an intimate relationship, long standing, whatever. You just want to be able to um, be friends, have sex with each other, and maybe with other people too. But that's the agreement: is this is not going to go into a deeply committed relationship.
Hmm.
So I think it can come into that transactional because again, I think it's something that you need to discuss with each other. You need both
Right,
need to be clear about what it is that you want to get out of that relationship.
right.
And then,
And that's the thing. Sorry
sorry,
for you.
no, no,
For
you.
you. Well, no, it's just I'm just getting reflecting back in that relationship I had. Is I didn't necessarily feel. I mean, in that situation, she was in a relationship, but they went through rough patches, and that's when we got together, sort of thing. So it was a chance to have fun, and I didn't mind at all because we were also roommates at the time as well. So it's very convenient. That's it. But it also wasn't something that I had a lot of pressure on, and I felt like we both had an ease with the way we got together that wasn't strategized or planned or organized. Just like, sure, let's do this sort of thing. It was kind of again very informal and very playful. So that's what I'm saying. I don't necessarily fit into the transactional in my mindset of what happened
Yeah.
in that situation. Because again, it could be unique, that one.
Well, exactly, because I don't think what you're describing is even a friends with benefits so much. I think it's just that she broke up. It was convenient. You were there. You did it's not. I'm sure you liked each other very much, and maybe if she hadn't got back with a boyfriend, you would have seen where it would have gone, or whatever. It was like the beginnings of a getting together to see where this is going to go, as opposed to. I do know that there are other people that have very very clear lines on what the friend with benefits thing is, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of others. There's green card marriages, for example. You know, I I know relationships where people they are together. I mean, hand up me. I was with a previous boyfriend years and years ago when I first came here. We lived together. We were dating. I probably wouldn't have married him if it hadn't have been for but we were living together and dating. But I was very young. But
mhm,
the green card came into the conversation because otherwise I would have had to have left, and we wanted to continue to see where the relationship was going to go, and so we rushed into that. It was a bit messy because I don't know because it was a relationship that turned into something, and then it just got a bit complicated. But there are some relationships that are purely friendships, but they get
mhm,
married for the green card. And they used to be years and years ago, there was a money exchange for it. I mean, people would offer their services to marry you in exchange for money. I'm talking about in the 70s or 80s. I don't know what it's like now. I think it's much harder. But again, that's transactional. That's we wouldn't be getting married if it wasn't for that. And I also, this is really interesting. I see this, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Barry, in the work that we do. I see over the years that I've been in this field, which is 40 years, I've seen couples that teach relationship classes or sort of self help things, and they present themselves as this sort of couple, this ideal couple, and they work together and they work with their clients, but their relationship is based on the fact that they have a product that they're selling. They're selling their, if you work with us, you can have a relationship like us. And if you sort of lift the lid off sometimes, you can see that that is not a particularly healthy relationship. But it's transactional because they've agreed that they're going to stay together because of the image and the product they've created, and they're going to continue with that because it looks good
right.
and it's a good selling point. And
Hmm.
again, as I've said, I've seen a couple of these relationships in the last 40 years, maybe a bit more than a couple. And again, it's transactional. It's like it's almost like we have this baby. It's not a physical baby, but it's our work. It's our program that we present, and it's
Hmm.
important that we remain together to support this program that we sell. I don't know if have you ever encountered that?
I'm just scanning through all the couples that are in the relationship and dating fields, like as you're saying, it's like, who do I know that does that?
Hmm.
A lot of the couples I know,
Is as well. So some of the
yeah,
couples are not still together. Put it that way.
no, but I mean, I'm looking at quite a few couples who one of the partners is a relationship expert and does on stage, while the other person is not. So there's quite a few of those I know Whereas it's one of the partners is a relationship expert, teacher, guide, instructor, sort of thing, whereas their partner is not on stage at all, nothing to do with that. So that's seen more often, frankly, which is definitely different. I'm just thinking there's only about, I think one, I think maybe a couple of couples I know who are together in love and in business,
Mhm.
and both of those to me are clean, from what I can tell. Again, if they're really good at it, maybe they're hiding it so well I don't notice it. But I don't believe, in fact, no. But I know for one couple I know for sure lives what they teach.
Mhm.
They're absolutely in love and joyfully together, which is part of what their marketing and message is. It's who they are. They just do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
So
actually. I have a few couples that I can say 100% that they walk their talk, they are what they present themselves to be. I'm just saying that over the course of all of those years, I have seen a
right.
couple where I see that a not a refusal, but a uh, staying together for other reasons than the intimacy and the love and the
Yeah.
connection.
No, definitely. I know. Well, I do know. There's actually a couple of famous people I know who were a couple a long time ago, who both are in the relationship field, and they went different directions completely, and they still teach their messaging different now from each other, but
Mhm.
they broke apart, but they did in integrity, so that was clean.
Yeah, exactly. And then what are some of the other relationship things? Oh, I know. I interviewed when I was in production. I interviewed a woman many years ago. We were going to do a show called Kink, and it was about different sort of lifestyles.
Yes.
And so it was a fascinating. Oh my God, I would interview these people, and there was one woman who was she'd been some business person, and she was an older woman, and she decided that she wanted to get into this sex work industry. And she'd been a CEO of a company. She just had reached this point in life, and she thought, well, that's a fantasy I'd like to explore. So I was interviewing her, and I said, do you ever because she would go to people's houses, and I said, does somebody ever open the door and you go, oof, no, I couldn't have sex with them? And she looked at me and she just said, everybody deserves to be loved physically. Everybody. She goes, I never look at them, as am I attracted to you or not? She said, I work with a lot of people that are either housebound, physically disabled, or elderly that would love some physical companionship, but they can't get it other
Hmm.
than by hiring me. Oh, I can't even tell you. It was the most humbling experience in my life. I felt so ashamed of myself for having had that reaction and having said that. So that to me was a beautiful transactional relationship between a sex worker and somebody that would never have been able to enjoy physical contact if it wasn't for somebody like her who they could reach out to.
That is definitely a special. I mean, it's a special calling, to be frank.
Yeah.
That I witnessed with some people I know do the same thing, and that is something that I it's not my path for sure. Just to be transparent, but I do.
But no judgment. Again, in fact, I have admiration for her.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I deep respect because yes, I agree that they do. You know, people who are shut-ins, physically challenged, whatever those things are, absolutely deserve and I won't say requires is a strong word, but definitely are deserving of having that level of intimacy and connection and joyful physical contact. And so, because she can offer it that way as part of her business, it's a healthy thing, and that's the challenge we have had. Such, and this could be another episode as well, about how the sex workers are demeaned and looked at so badly. Yet the truth is, they provide a service that would not necessarily naturally happen. So it's vital for them to be doing what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, yeah. There's definitely another another conversation for sure. But yeah, and there's. I'm just trying to think of also. There's. I mean, it used to be that all relationships were transactional. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of years ago, where it was all about you know whether we were bartering our children for a cow, or whether it was sort of merging.
Dowry, yeah, absolutely.
What was the other? What did you say?
That's what became the dowries. That whole thing was definitely about how much it was worth to the other person to get them married. So the families benefited from the couples getting married. It was like it definitely was transactional.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just thinking, sort of in the UK, the sort of aristocracy sort of marrying each other to maintain their land, and what was a
Hmm.
good marriage as far as prestige and acceptability, but maybe your stately home was running down, so you therefore had to marry somebody that was the status but brought the money in. I mean, there's so many. It's really only, I would say, oh God, 100 years that love and intimacy has become the real. Well, Jane Austen would disagree, but maybe 50 years. But really, it always has to some degree or another been transactional. And
Yeah.
even in a we talked about tried wives and tried husbands a few weeks ago, and it's the same thing. Again, it's I'm not saying it doesn't have an emotional component. Of course, it does, but there is a transactional element to it, which is um, the transaction is I'll play this role and you play that role,
Right.
and it's obviously. I mean, I think that they've incorporated the emotional aspect of it. But I think within all relationships, there's this um, give and take and a wanting to equalize the relationship by seeing that if somebody is bringing in more of the finances, then how can you compensate more in another way to show appreciation and show investment, that you're both invested in a different way. Maybe one there's more
Hmm.
financial, one there's more caretaking of the home or children, whatever that is. But emotionally, there's
Yeah.
still that connection.
Yeah. It's definitely something that it is. I guess the bottom line is to sort of clarity is that transactional relationships can work when it's a certain type of setup, but the norm, in quotes, of what relationships are about are usually not that. But at certain circumstances or experiences that put people in the place where that's the only way they can do it in a way that's functional. And making that okay is part of what our work is as well, because but not only as coaches, but as human beings, to respect that people make choices that may not match what we choose, but it works for them. And can we at least honor that for them?
Yeah. And I think the bottom line is, because as I said, what started this was what I saw was um, not intentional deception, but an expectation. And I know we've talked about this before, agreements versus expectations. And it doesn't mean, like you were talking about the woman that you had that brief thing with and friends with benefits. It doesn't mean that everybody that but I do, again, I think if you have a friend and you end up, spending the night together and you wake up the next morning and go, whoops, hang on a minute. I just wanted us to stay friends, but that was fun. That was nice. We could do that again. But again, with this sort of understanding of, but I don't see us going any further than that. That's all you. It's a simple, and you might not have to be as blunt as that, but you. I think we have a. I do think we have a moral obligation to be clear
Mm.
with each other about what our expectations are out of a relationship, and however we communicate that doesn't have to be blunt, but I think it's important that both people are on the same page. Both people understand what the agreement is of the relationship.
Right.
Right.
Sure. Relationships, relationships have lots of ways of approaching them, or we have
It's,
lots of ways of approaching relationships. So this is just another one of those really strange, bizarre ways of doing it.
yeah, or maybe not so strange and bizarre, because as I said, I think when we look at it, there's some type of give and take in all relationships,
Yeah.
an awareness of not being solely the taker or solely the giver, but
Hmm.
the understanding that there is this ebb and flow of give and take in all relationships. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Barry, for another great conversation. And
Was interesting.
this is our 100th episode. Oh my
Yes,
God.
indeed. Happy anniversary.
Yes, yes, that's right. 100 episodes. Wonderful. All right. Well,
Hmm.
thank you, everyone. We will see you all next week. And
Yep.
thank you again, Barry, and have a great
Thank
week.
you.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Dell. We'll see you later. Take care. We trust you enjoyed this episode. and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode, fresh and shiny, as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well, so go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.